podcast. It's been a little over a week. We're sorry we haven't been making as much content for you guys, but there hasn't been a lot of news. This is the 7th episode of the Build Up podcast with Jake and Justin. So, Justin, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good. Getting through this quarantine. Hopefully, heading into the green phase pretty soon. Today we actually got some pretty big news drop today, just like an hour or so before our show today, regarding Jamal Adams. So we're going to start off the show with that, and we're going to talk about Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. We know those new pictures of him and Gronk that surfaced this weekend of them in the Bucs jerseys. We've seen Tom Brady working out from the sky cam. So there's a lot to talk about there. We're going to talk about our top 5 quarterbacks. We're going to talk about baseball, which actually has some pretty big news today. Baseball is potentially coming back. It looks like it's trending that way, at least after a very up and down process. And then we're going to talk about the NBA. Obviously, the NBA just kind of threw out its plan for the return of basketball on July 30th. So we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA and what this championship means and who needs that ring the most. But first, we're going to start off with the NFL here. Jamal Adams has officially requested a trade from the New York Jets. I mean, I think we saw this coming, Justin, but it still feels shocking. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I don't know. I feel like it's dumb on his part because he wants to be paid, right? This whole situation is him feeling underpaid. But he's requested a trade to 7 teams, really. The Ravens, the Cowboys, the Texans, the Chiefs, Eagles, 49ers, and Seahawks. Mm-hmm. None of those teams have salary cap space. None of those teams have a lot of assets to give up other than draft picks, which they'll probably want.
Is he still on his rookie deal?
Yeah, he's still on his rookie deal, so he's going to get a contract extension.
But yeah, he won't need a
teams like the Ravens, they have a little bit of cap space, but the Cowboys are going to have 0 cap space. The Eagles have no cap space. These teams don't have the money to pay him. Like, obviously, he wants to go to contender and win, but if they're not able to pay him, they're only going to have him for 1 year. I think it's 1 or 2 years. So what's the point in giving up 3 first-round picks like the Jets had previously wanted? Like, I don't understand why this trade's coming out. Does he want paid, or does he want to win? Like, I think he's got to make up his mind here. What does he want?
I think it's a really interesting situation. I thought for a while that Jamal Adams really would eventually become a Dallas Cowboy, but and that there's the rumors about him going to the Dallas Cowboys have been up there for quite a while. I mean, I think they started like last year, and the Dallas Cowboys couldn't make a move, but now they got even more of an interesting situation because they got to pay Amari Cooper, they got to pay Dak Prescott if they stick with Dak Prescott, but they're probably going to pay Amari Cooper considering he's their wide receiver 1. But Dak Prescott's probably a little more replaceable. I think this officially, if the Cowboys are somehow able to get Jamal Adams, I think this officially puts Prescott out of the Dallas Cowboys picture. Because certainly, I don't think there's any way they could sign him even for half of what he's asking if they get a guy like Jamal Adams. Because to pull a Jamal Adams off, they're probably going to have to trade several draft capital for the next couple of years, as well as probably a few starters right now just to get him. Considering he's – and I don't think he is one. I think he's one of the better safeties in the NFL. I think he's a little overrated. I think he's got like just big. I don't know. For some reason, people have just established that he's like amazing. He's very good, but I think he's a little overrated. And I don't know if he's necessarily the best safety right now in the NFL. He's definitely up there though. But
no,
it also depends what he's asking for. You're right, exactly with the money. Does he want a big pay raise or does he just want to win? Because he could work on some of these contenders like the Cowboys. I mean, we saw the Chiefs. The Chiefs were up there too. The 49ers. I mean, if he goes to the 49ers, that defense would just be unbelievable. I don't think that'll happen, but because it's just not what the 49ers need right now. But the Chiefs are definitely a team who could make a move. But they also have a problem with cap space because they got to pay Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in football. So that's going to be a big deal. It's going to be $35 to $40 million right there, and Dak's asking for 45. So I think you're right. It's going to be really interesting what team he ends up going to. I actually think it could be more of a sleeper team. I think a lot of times we see in these player demanded trades, a lot of times it's a sleeper team that you don't really expect. It ends up getting the player. So it could be something like that, but it also could be a way of Adams kind of forcing his way to a team, as we've seen players say, well, if you trade me here, I won't play for that team, and then that team won't obviously trade for you. But if he's really dialed in on these, 7 teams that he listed, I believe?
Yeah, 7 teams.
Yeah, so and all of them are pretty much high quality teams. It's just about the money. You're right. So I don't know where he's going to go. I mean, I don't know why I was shocked by this news, but I just really was. But I think it could be a sleeper team. I mean, we see those 7 teams right now. Those are preferred. That's not where he necessarily will go. If he says, if he literally tells another team that he's not going to play for them, obviously he won't go there. But if the best package that comes to the Jets is from another team, they're going to pull the trigger on that deal.
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, 6 out of the 7 teams he listed were playoff teams last year. So
Yeah,
clearly, in his mind right now, he wants to go to a winner. And I mean, obviously, the Jets are not winners right now. I don't think they will be for a couple more years if they even do become winners. But I just don't understand why he is requesting the trade like this. I mean, does he want the money? Because originally I thought his big thing was he wanted paid. He felt underpaid because he's still on, I believe it's a rookie deal. He's still not getting paid. He's not an elite safety. He's not a top 5 safety paid. He's not at least paid like a top 5 safety right now. So does he want the money or does he want to play for a contender? It's kind of he can't. I don't think he can get both. I think
no.
he needs to pick one.
Just wanted to pinpoint this. So the 7 teams were the Ravens, the Cowboys, the Texans, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. So 6 of those 7 were playoff teams last year. Most of those teams will be in the playoffs this year. The only team that I think that probably won't be is the Texans in that group. But other than that, really strong teams that he's looking to go to. So I think he's obviously looking to win. But it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. So we're going to keep an eye on that for sure. That's the biggest storyline in football right now. Outside of the next guy we're going to talk about, Tom Brady, who we saw some pictures released of him, 2 days ago?
Yep.
Him in the Buccaneers jersey. I'm sure our good friend Andy was very happy to see that. Brady posed for a couple pictures, so did Gronk. And we've been seeing this week Brady working out with guys like Ronald Jones, Chris Godwin, and Gronk on his own at some training facility. So the hype is real for the Buccaneers, but the biggest question that we're going to ask you today is, what do we really think about Tom Brady's true impact on the Buccaneers? I mean, we've seen what they were last year with Jameis Winston. Does putting Tom Brady essentially on this team in replace of Jameis Winston while adding an aging Gronk, I don't think adds that much to the roster on the offensive side. But
especially
do you
a smaller
think,
Gronk.
Exactly. He looked skinny. He looked like he had been off the I don't know if he was taking roids as a New England Patriot, but he looked way skinnier, and he was already injury prone at the way he looked, which it concerns me even more. But what do we think about Tom Brady's impact necessarily swapping him in for Jameis Winston?
Honestly, I think Jameis was a better fit for that offense. I think they had a lot of vertical threats, and Jameis had the arm to hit them. I mean, clearly he was a little careless with the ball, but he had this arm strength. He was able to hit Evans deep. He was able to hit O.J. Howard, Chris Godwin. He was able to hit those guys with the deep ball. I don't know if Tom Brady will still be able to do that at his age. He obviously had a pretty solid deep ball early in his career, but if you look at his past wide receivers recently and his past tight ends, they're all short target, mid slant type guys. They're not deep threats. So I'm curious to see how Tom Brady would work in that offense. I do not think at his age he will be able to do that. I mean, the one thing Brady does bring is veteran leadership. He brings that playoff experience. He brings something Winston didn't have to the locker room. I'm not sure how great Winston was in the locker room. I'm not sure what his character was like. I think there were little issues there. I think Brady certainly has him on that end. Yes, I think Brady certainly has him off field and in the locker room. But as for talent right now, I think Winston at his age may be better than Tom Brady. I know that's a little bit of a hot take, but I think Tom Brady's kind of falling off a cliff here.
All right. I am not a big Tom Brady fan. I obviously, I talked about this with Addy. I think he's very overrated. I don't believe he's the best quarterback that ever lived. But Jameis Winston was, as Stephen A. Smith would say, arguably the defensive player of the year last year. 30 picks. I know this offseason that he got his vision fixed. I don't know how much that really changes things. I mean, there were times last year where he would literally throw the ball down the field and just pray. He would just pray. He would pray that
part of the problem was the offensive line, though. They had zero offensive line, and they had zero run game. Their run game was non-existent last season.
I'm very concerned for the Bucs this season in terms of meeting expectations, because oh my god, I mean they're getting like some of the high percentages of Super Bowl bets, which is ridiculous. I
Yeah.
mean, Tom Brady. Tom Brady. I will say this, and I'm not a Tom Brady fan, but I have to disagree with you. I think Tom Brady is slightly better than what they had with Jameis last season. At least last year's Jameis. I don't know what that vision's going to do to him. Maybe that vision was all he needed. I kind of highly doubt it because I think he's had some more problems than that. Maybe the vision would cut off a couple picks, not several. And that's why he's a third string quarterback right now. I think NFL teams know what they're doing, seeing what he does in the field and how he reads, route running and stuff like that. I think he's definitely not on target with that. Whereas a guy like Brady, even though I hate him because he's never really been a great deep ball thrower, he's never been a bad one, but his game has traditionally really relied on the short dink and dunk, which I think he's actually going to be able to do in this offense. Look, it's not what Evans and Godwin are going to look for, but those guys are fast receivers, So I think if you can give them a short route, they can turn a 5-6 yard pass into a 15-yarder, which is what he thrived on the Patriots. So the Buccaneers got a lot of problems. I mean, first of all, they're going to have to throw the ball out quick with that offensive line, and especially with Brady, because you don't want Brady taking too many hits. So he's going to get the ball out of his hand really quick. This season especially, because he had great lines with the Patriots. He was able to hold on a little bit more, but he's always been a quick thrower, 5-6 yard dunk turned to a 15-yarder. But I think he's going to be better than Jameis this season. I don't think he's going to be that much better than what he was last season. Last season, he went, I think, like 24 touchdowns, 8 picks. I think if he just does that again, the Buccaneers will probably win 9 to 10 games, probably, because they won 8 games last season, I believe, 7, 8 games. I think it was 7. But
Yeah.
I think they win 9, 10 games this season with Tom Brady. I don't think they're going to the Super Bowl like some people are saying, but I have to give Brady the edge over Winston here, even though I hate Brady, and I don't think he's the GOAT. Obviously, I've called him last episode. I told you why he's not the GOAT. He's not the best quarterback to ever live, but he's certainly, even at age 43, I think he's better than what we saw last season from Jameis Winston. I don't know what Winston would do this season, but obviously, I don't think they prepared him very well in his 4 or 5 seasons. They really haven't developed him too well, which is a little bit suspicious for that Buccaneers team just as a whole. You got a great offense, but where's the defense? Where's the development of these first round picks? So I think they got a lot of problems, but I don't think quarterback is going to be their main concern this season. I just think Brady isn't good enough to win the championship by his own anymore. By leading an offense, they're not going to score enough points with him. They're going to need everybody else to step up. It'll be a prayer for them to really do anything this season. That's how I feel about it, to be honest.
I mean, in my opinion, Brady and Gronk going to Tampa Bay is kind of like Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett going to the Brooklyn Nets. They're both
minus
good players
the
in their
huge draft
primes.
haul.
Yes, obviously minus the huge draft haul. But they were both great players in their primes, but they are not the same players that they were when they were in their primes. And I think you will see that with this season. I think they will struggle. They're not in that Bill Belichick system. They're going to have a little more competition, I think, within their division. I think the Patriots never had a real team to compete with them in their division. They were playing the Bills, Dolphins, and Jets. They never really had any competition. You get the arguably best team in the NFC South when you're looking at the roster. You think, honestly, the Saints may have the best roster in all of football in that division. So, yeah, it's tough. You got them. Panthers aren't no run over team. I think they're a solid team. They're not great, but they're not no run over. And you got the Falcons with Matt Ryan, Julio, and Todd Gurley. You don't know what they're going to bring. They're going to have a solid division to compete with, which is something Brady has never really had to do. So that will be interesting. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the system fits Brady, because it's going to be certainly different than what the Patriot system was.
I think we're actually going to see a big fall off from Gronk. I don't think he's that. I don't think he does much this season. First of all, they're loaded at tight end, so they're probably going to be splitting snaps. Yeah. I don't think he's going to do much this year, to be honest. I think Brady at age 43 is better at his position than Gronk is at age 31 at tight end. I don't think Gronk does much this year, to be honest. I don't even think he's really a top 10 tight end right now.
I was going to say, do you think he's a top 10 tight end?
What?
Do you think he's a top 10 tight end?
No, I don't think he is. I don't think he is right now, to be honest.
Because people are saying he's still top 5, and I'm like, that's crazy. Top 10, I'll give you. He could be around 8 through 10, but top 5 is just crazy.
To be honest,
people are just talking so crazy.
the guy they drafted, O.J. Howard, should be much better than what he is right now. Maybe the reason is O.J. Howard had some really good games last season. I think he could be better than Gronk this season, to be honest, and he's going to be healthier probably. So I hope that they start the young guy and just kind of like Gronk as a mentor role, and I think that'd be better for the Bucks. But I really think that this coaching staff is gonna believe into this hype, and they're gonna play Gronk a lot of snaps, which I think is a mistake. I think O.J. Howard could be really good. He came out of Alabama. He's really solid. He's just got to grow. He's got growth. You need to grow him as a young tight end. Tight ends take a while. I mean, we saw Jake Butt, the Broncos took him, Mike Gesicki, and these are guys that didn't play like the first 2-3 years, and then towards the end of last season, we finally started to see them play. You just got to give them a chance. So Tom Brady's impact is, I think, a little bit higher than Winston's, but I think Gronk is completely overrated. I don't think he does much this year.
I agree with that. I mean, Brady is still an average quarterback, in my opinion. I wouldn't say he's great anymore because he was great. But, like, how much of that was with the Patriots system then? Because, like, obviously during his prime was, like, not the system. Like, that was purely him running a good offense. But at the end of his career here, these past couple of years, how much of his success was on the system? Like, obviously, they still had some solid players. They also had a good run game.
They always have, and they always have a good pass catching running back, which the Buccaneers do not have.
Exactly. No offense to Ronald Jones, but he is not good. I do not think he's good. If he has a good season, I would be shocked. I don't think he's
They're going to need. They took Keyshawn Vaughn, I think, in the third round. They need him to go off. They need him to be really good.
A guy that I could see them signing is Devontae Freeman. If they sign him, I would be pretty pleased with that offense then, because I think they need a running back to have true dominating success this season. Without a running back, I do not think they will have success because Brady is used to having good running backs, and they just do not have that in Tampa Bay right now.
All right.
Especially with that offensive line. I don't know how, like, they have
the offensive line is
average running backs. They have average running backs, but that's not going to help them behind a bad O-line. And Brady's had a solid O-line his whole career, so how will he play with a bad O-line in front of him during pass protection? I don't know. He may struggle there too.
Yeah, we've heard the saying in the NFL, running backs are a dime a dozen. There's a lot of good backs out there. If you just have a good line, any back can really be good. But the Buccaneers haven't had a very good running back in a long time. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this season. Maybe Keyshawn Vaughn's their savior, but I kind of doubt it. But we're going to move on. We're going to talk next here about our top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. It's a pretty highly debated topic. We've been talking about each position here on the Boiled Up podcast. Today we're going to talk about the quarterbacks. So we just talked about Tom Brady. Is he going to slip into one of our top 5s? Probably not. But Justin, who's your top 5? You can start first.
Why don't you go first? I'll let you go.
I'll go first. You want to? All right. Yeah. Best for last, I guess. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this list is pretty decisive. I hope we pretty much agree on everything here, but I know we won't. I know there'll probably be at least one that we don't agree on. But all right. So number 1, I got Patrick Mahomes. It's a pretty simple pick. He's a Super Bowl MVP. He was the MVP the previous year, and he's the best quarterback in football. It's really not close. I'd say he's here in terms of talent, and his next guy is probably like here. There's just nobody like Patrick Mahomes in the league right now. And I said this last episode, I think if Patrick Mahomes wins another ring or 2 with an MVP, I think he possibly would secure himself as the greatest quarterback of all time. And I think he could do
certainly is one of the most.
He could do it pretty quickly. He could do it pretty quickly if he just wins a couple more. And I think he can, especially, oh my God, if they get Jamal Adams, they're winning a couple more for sure. Number 2, I got Lamar Jackson, the cover of Madden this season and the MVP of the previous season. Lamar Jackson, man, Action Jackson. I believe in him. And I hate watching him play. Obviously, he's crushed the Steelers in the last year. But he's just so good. I mean, he combined for over 40 touchdowns last season to like 6 or 8 picks. He gives you 150 to 200 passing yards a game, along with 80 to 100 rushing yards a game. He's good for 250 to 300 yards per game easily, and he's good for at least 2 or 3 touchdowns. He didn't turn the ball over much last year until the playoff game against the Tennessee Titans, which I know will be your argument as to why he's not the second best. But if I had to pick a team right now, and you said, which quarterback do you want? And you gave me Russell Wilson or Lamar Jackson. I would take Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson can do more with less weapons than Russell Wilson can, mostly because of his ability to run the football. but also because of ability to draw defenses off with the play action. Wilson's a mobile quarterback, but he's not Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson might be the most mobile quarterback we've ever seen. I mean, Mike Vick's obviously up there, but I think Lamar Jackson might be slightly better as a runner at the quarterback position. And I think he's a better thrower than Vick. But that's a conversation for another day. Number 3, I got Russell Wilson, your man. I know he's going to be number 2 on your list. Russell Wilson's great, man. I mean, there's nothing I can really say that's bad about Russell Wilson. I think he's going to bounce. I think he's going to have a very good season. He always has a great season. Last year he went like 32-8 with his touchdown.
Exactly.
And he's a better thrower of the football than Lamar. But all around quarterback play, all around winning play, Lamar Jackson went 14-2 last season. I think Russell Wilson went 11-5. Lamar Jackson was better. He was better last season. He was the MVP.
Because he had one good year that makes him better than Russell Wilson, who has consistently been a top 5 quarterback for the past, 8 years now?
This was basically Lamar's first year as a starter, and he did this. Because he only started the last couple games for the Ravens in that first year. That was his first year, really, last year, as full-time starter. And he did that? He did that in his first year? I mean, Lamar Jackson did the same thing, but still.
Russell Wilson has done the exact same thing for the past 8 seasons. Lamar Jackson's done it once. You're going to put Lamar Jackson over a guy who's done it for consecutive years now. He's done it for multiple years.
Lamar Jackson
won in the playoffs. He's been to the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson hasn't done anything. He's done nothing.
I'm telling you, man.
He won an MVP. Who cares? He had one of the worst divisions in football.
Okay, yes, that's true. He did. But he was playing pretty good defenses.
Very easy competition.
The Steelers have a pretty good defense. The Browns have a decent defense. It's not like
the Browns do not have a good defense. That whole Browns, you can't say anything good about that Browns team last season. Not one thing.
Myles Garrett before he got suspended.
He was okay.
He's pretty good.
He was having a solid season, but one player doesn't make a good defense.
Lamar Jackson is – and look, I'm telling you right now. I'm not telling you if you want to give me the last 8 years. Obviously, Lamar Jackson was still in high school 8 years ago. So, of course, you can give me Russell Wilson for the last 8 years. But if you're telling me right now who I'd rather want on my team, yes, I'm taking Lamar Jackson. I don't think he falls this season. I think he gets even better. I think he becomes a better thrower. I think he stops relying on the run as much because he knows he can throw now. But that running ability is also going to be super dangerous. He'll still get 60 to 70 yards per game rushing, even if he didn't want to run that game. He's that good on the ground. He's better than Russell Wilson. Number 4, I got Drew Brees. There's been a lot of controversy around Drew Brees off the field. We're not going to talk about that today. But Drew Brees is still a bad man. He's still a great thrower of the football. He's aging. He doesn't quite have the deep ball like he used to, but he's still incredible. And last season, he was really good until that playoff game when the Saints choked again. I'm not taking the playoffs. I'm talking about just a quarterback for his season and the whole season in whole. And Drew Brees was unbelievable. He was a top 5 quarterback by far last season. Putting him in number 4 was a pretty easy decision for me. He's going to have another big year. They got Emmanuel Sanders in that offense. Him, Michael Thomas, Kamara, and Jared Cook. They're going to do some damage. I think Brees could have 30-plus touchdowns this season. So he slots in at number 4 for me. Number 5, I got Aaron Rodgers. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks. I think he's the best quarterback to ever live. I talked about that in our last episode. But he had another great year last year. And last year, this is why you have to give respect to Aaron Rodgers. Last year was a down year for Aaron Rodgers, and he had 26 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. That would be the best year of almost every other quarterback in the league's life, except for these other 4 guys that I just listed.
Are we talking about that? Are we saying that we're going off most recent success, or are we going off career success here now? Because you told me Lamar Jackson's better than Russell Wilson because he had a good year last year. Aaron Rodgers had a bad year last year, but apparently he's good enough to be in the top 5. So you're basing it off of career-long success there. I think
you have to find a nice mix of what you use for recency and what you use for longevity. With Jackson, I don't have a lot of longevity with him. He's played 1 season, really, in like a couple starts in his first year. He hasn't played much. So obviously, I don't have a full good look at him. But I'm telling you, last season was unbelievable. And right now, I would take him over all these guys right now just because of where he would stand. And Aaron Rodgers, I would still take right now. Last year was a down year. He's going to be way better than he was last year, I bet, especially with the added motivation of drafting the quarterback that they did, Jordan Love, in the first round. He's got to be pissed. He's going to come out rifling. He's going to easily do way better than last season. I think he should be higher than 5 right now. I think it's a little bit of a conservative pick just because, the last kind of taste we had of Rodgers sort of was not great against the 49ers in that championship game, but they had a great defense. and the Packers just couldn't stop him on defense. So it was a lose-lose situation for the best quarterback to ever live, Aaron Rodgers. But he's won a Super Bowl, so I'm sure he's not sweating it too hard. But I think the Packers could be a surprise team this season, and I think Aaron Rodgers is the fifth best quarterback in football right now. And I think there's a lot that you could say that could back that up. Even though he had a down year last year, he still had a pretty solid QBR, and he didn't turn the ball over. He didn't lose games for his team. They went 13-3. The main job of the quarterback is just to get a win, and he does. That's all he does. He gets wins, and he puts up good stats, even in a down year where most quarterbacks would have been on their knees just to get a year like that, and that's one of Aaron Rodgers' worst seasons. So I think that says something about Aaron Rodgers. That's why I use a little bit of longevity for him, because of the fact that he's been at his best, he's like 40-plus touchdowns with like 4 picks. At his worst, he's like 26 touchdowns with 4 picks. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's had like numerous times where you watch a game and they're like Aaron Rodgers' first interception since like week 4 of like last season. In the middle of the season, you're like, whoa, that's insane. How's he doing this? Every other quarterback's averaging like 10 to 12 interceptions a year, and this guy's out here throwing like maybe 2 or 3 bad balls per year. So Aaron Rodgers is easily in the top 5 for me. I wish I could put him higher, but I can't right now. But we're going to move on. Justin, I know you're disagreeing with my list heavily.
Yeah, I have a lot.
I want to hear yours.
Wrong with that list. Okay, so first, I agree with you, number 1. It's obviously Patrick Mahomes. That's like, I don't think you can really debate that. I think everyone's going to give it to
Patrick Mahomes. I hope
you
wouldn't debate that. I have to turn this
if you debate that, you got some real issues. So I hope you don't debate that. But number 2, I got to give it to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's been more consistent than Lamar Jackson. He's proven himself in the playoffs. He's able to win games. I mean, he won a playoff game last year. How many playoff games did Lamar win last year? I mean, look at the stats. Russell Wilson threw for not only a couple more yards than Lamar Jackson, over 1,000 more yards. Over 1,000 more yards.
Yeah, but who had more total yards? He didn't have as many touchdowns.
Total yards?
Total
it doesn't
yards,
matter how many total yards.
Jackson had more.
Lamar Jackson, honestly, may have had better weapons out there. I mean, he had Nick Boyle, Hollywood Brown, good offensive line, good running game. He had if I'm taking an offense, I'm taking Lamar Jackson's offense over the Seahawks offense last year. I mean, Tyler Lockett was hurt for a bit there. DK Metcalf was dealing with some injuries. They didn't have their roster healthy the whole time, and they had a bad offensive line. Their running backs were hurt constantly. Russell Wilson still went out and carried that offense. Lamar Jackson was also kind of carried by an elite defense last year. I mean, that defense is really good. I'd say it's top 5 in football, and Russell Wilson certainly doesn't have that. I think Lamar Jackson was a little bit reliant on that defense compared to Russell Wilson, who had to kind of win himself the football games. I mean, if the Seahawks score that touchdown they were about half a yard short against the 49ers, they win that division, and they are the number, I think it's 2 seed in the East, or in the NFC last season. So that would be a huge difference.
You can't say that. They lost the game.
By half a yard. Half a yard.
Still lost.
Because they never touched. Half a yard short. It wasn't that big of a deal. And I mean, Russell Wilson is just consistently putting up the numbers over Lamar Jackson. So I have to give it to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is a better quarterback right now. And I mean, think about it. If you're picking a guy that can start your team right now and you're trying to contend, you're going to take Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has proven himself. He's been better consistently. He's just a better – doesn't have the dynamic run game, but he's a more consistent thrower of the football. He can still escape sacks. He can get rushing yards. He can get 50, 60 rushing yards a game. He's not going to get as many as Lamar, but he can still run, and he's a true leader. Lamar Jackson, we haven't seen that yet. He hasn't taken a bad team deep in the playoffs. I mean, Russell Wilson did it last year a little bit, so I have to give it to Wilson. And then
I just want to say that's an arguable point that you're making right there. I can't really say you're wrong, but it's just I think I cannot believe the discredit to Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's so good. I mean,
he's had 1 year. You know how many other guys have had one good season?
He's not going to be a 1 year.
So many quarterbacks.
I'll guarantee
you
he won't be a 1 year.
You can't say that.
Unless he gets a catastrophic injury.
I mean, look at RG3. Everybody thought RG3 was the next best player. What happened to him? He's been riding the bench
did not win an MVP.
He was on his way to. He was going to be a future MVP. He was on his way to.
Lamar Jackson's already done it.
He also didn't have the team around him like Lamar Jackson has had. Lamar Jackson has a very good team and a very good system that he's in. I think a lot of credit has to go to that. And I think once we saw what happened to him in the playoffs, He hasn't shown up. I mean, you contain him, keep him in the pocket. He cannot make the throws. He can't. He just cannot make the throws from the pocket. He has to be on the run or outside the pocket to make a good throw. And it was exposed in the playoff game. I think when he goes up against a good defense like that and you can keep him in the pocket, he gets exposed. And I think that kind of showed teams how to play Lamar Jackson. I would be shocked if he doesn't struggle this season. I think he's a good player, but I think if you keep him in the pocket and you can kind of contain him, force him to throw the ball and prevent his runs, you'll see a different Lamar Jackson than what we saw last year, where you'll see playoff Lamar Jackson compared to last year's regular season. All right, I'll go to number 3.
We can debate that forever.
Number 3, you probably won't like this. A little bit of a surprise here, but I have to give it to right now Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is my number 3 quarterback because he is the first quarterback ever to throw 4,000 yards without a 500-yard receiver. Not even 500 yards, or without I think it was 1,000. It was 1,000-yard wide receiver, right? Or no, 500-yard wide
without a wide receiver leading the team in receiving.
500. It was 500 yards wide receiver. None of the Eagles wide receivers had 500 yards. Didn't have a single receiver over 100K. I mean, Zach Ertz had 900 and Goddard had 540, but none of their highest wide receiver was Alshon Jeffrey at 490 yards. So he didn't have anybody to throw the ball to. You know who his number 1 wide receiver in the playoffs was? A guy, or not in the playoffs, but down the stretch to lead them to the playoffs. You know who it was?
Was it JJ?
No, it was Greg Ward, a quarterback who started on the practice squad at the beginning of the year. He was a quarterback on the Eagles practice squad who moved to wide receiver. That's how bad they were, and he was still able to lead this team to the playoffs. He is a leader. He's elite. And you know what else? He doesn't throw interceptions. He has the record for the least amount of interceptions up to this point in his career, better than Aaron Rodgers was at this point. And Aaron Rodgers is the guy that's known for not throwing interceptions, and he is better than him at that so far in his career. Let me bring up the stats here. I have Aaron Rodgers and Carson Wentz the last 3 years. Carson Wentz's record, 25-15. Aaron Rodgers, 23-15-1. Advantage Carson Wentz. Touchdown to interception ratio, Carson Wentz has 18-21. Aaron Rodgers, 67-12. Wentz has more touchdowns. He has a few more interceptions there, but I mean, his first season was really bad with interceptions, so that would be why. Completion percentage, Carson Wentz 64.4. Aaron Rodgers 62.6. Advantage Carson Wentz again. Passer rating, Wentz 98.3. Aaron Rodgers 96.6. Advantage Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. There is no doubt in my mind that he is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. He is consistently putting up numbers. He has no weapons. And you know what he did when he did have a solid team around him? He was the MVP of the league until he got hurt. He would have won MVP if he didn't get hurt, and there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, the MVP race was him up here, then Brady and Wilson were way down here. The only reason they were in conversation for that award then was because Wentz got hurt. Wentz, when he has a good team around him, he is an MVP candidate. Easy. No doubt in my mind.
Okay. I just want to make a good one. I love Carson Wentz. I've got him at 6 on my personal top 10 list. So I think he could be up there, but it's a little premature, I think, to put him ahead of guys like Lamar Jackson, Breeze, and Rodgers right now because, yes, he was very good last season.
I'd say he's equivalent to Lamar. Him and Lamar are pretty equal. Neither one has had playoff success, so you can't really judge that. I mean, Wentz hasn't been there.
I'd love to see Wentz get some playoff success. He hasn't had really a playoff opportunity. I'd love for him to just get an opportunity because I think he would have won that Super Bowl if he was with the Eagles in the 2018 playoff run. Yeah. I think he could have won the Super Bowl for them pretty easily.
He would have.
He's a much better quarterback than Nick Foles. So I can't say it's a bad pick. It's not like something blasphemous like putting Josh Allen at 3. But, I just think I want to see more from him this season. I think I'm with you on your point about the health concerns. He's not really injured. He just is an unlucky injury player. He gets hurt at the wrong time. But I think putting him at 3 is a little bit too premature. But continue with your list.
I mean, honestly, I think he is just so underrated because the guys that I'll give you Lamar Jackson if you want to put up there because he just was the reigning MVP. But if you want to put Aaron Rodgers ahead of him, that's crazy because I just read you the last 3 years. Carson Wentz has him in every stat other than interceptions, and that's including Wentz.
And Rodgers has had better playoff success.
Consistent. But that's because Wentz has gotten hurt. Wentz has consistently outbeat him every number. And honestly, who's Wentz had to throw to? His best wide receiver was what? Alshon Jeffrey. He doesn't have Devontae Adams out there catching the football. He doesn't have Aaron Jones at running back. I mean, honestly, I'd say Rodgers' weapons were better out there for the majority of their careers when you compare, or at least the last 3 seasons. So when I'm looking at that, I got to give the advantage to Carson Wentz. I mean, if Wentz was healthy, I think he would have won the Super Bowl in 17. He probably would have beat the Saints in 18. And last year, if Wentz was healthy, they certainly would have beaten the Seahawks. And they would have had Deshaun Jackson back for that game against the, I think it was, no, they would have ended up playing the Packers.
Yeah,
and they already beat they beat the Packers once already in the regular season. So there's no reason why they couldn't have done it again. They could have made another deep run in the playoffs if Wentz didn't take that cheap shot off Clowney. So I'm just saying, people like to hate on him for no reason. Like, he has done nothing wrong. He is a perfect human almost. Like, when you want to have a guy like you're building character off field, you couldn't ask for a better quarterback. And his talent on the field is just tremendous. I do not understand the hate for him because, in my opinion, he's probably the most hated quarterback in football.
That's a tough one. I think Dak Prescott's probably up there right now with the money he's asking for the most hated quarterback.
Okay,
I just want to say one final thing before you get to 4 and 5. I think this season is Carson Wentz's do or die season with this because he has weapons this season.
Well, he's already started out with another injury. They lost their starting right guard, who's arguably the best right guard in football.
But I think this is a do or die season for Carson Wentz. But continue.
I think it depends on health. But yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, if the line is terrible, obviously it's going to be hard. But I think they can survive at line. It won't be as good.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no more severe injuries to their starters right now, I agree with you. It's a do or die year, and I think he will succeed because that team is loaded this year on offense. So I agree with that. 4, this was a tough one for me, but I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. I really do not like Lamar. I think
I'm happy you changed your mind on him, having him in there, at least in the top 5.
It's not that I changed my mind on him. It's just I think there's 2 guys you can truly compete with him, in my opinion, and it's tough, but I have to put Deshaun Watson at 6. I have Rodgers at 5, and then Lamar at 4. I think it can go I think those 3 are kind of interchangeable right there. I think Watson will – the only reason I'd like to have Watson at 4 because I think he's more talented all around. But without Hopkins, I am not sold on him. I am not sold on what he will bring because we haven't seen him without an elite wide receiver out there.
I agree with that.
So they have Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, so they certainly have the speed, but I'm not sold on him. So that's why I have him not in my top 5. I said Aaron Rodgers. What can I not say? You already listed great things about him. I have him at 5. And then I give Lamar 4. I mean, he was the reigning MVP. You got to have him up there at least, but I could have him at 6. Like, I could make a case for him at 6. I feel like I could make a case for him at 5 or 4. I think he is top 6, though. I think 2 is too high, though. I think you putting him at 2 is unreasonable. I think he is anywhere between 3 and 6 would be a reasonable spot for him. But I think having him over Russell Wilson is just terrible.
Fair. I do believe you need Drew Brees in that top 5 somewhere. I think
Not anymore. I think he's washed just like Brady.
I love Aaron Rodgers, but I think he's better than Drew Brees. I think Drew Brees is better than
Aaron Rodgers. Not at this
Rodgers
point.
Right now.
Not right now. Drew Brees' arm we've seen it on the decline here. I do not think it's that good anymore. I mean, how much of that is just the system? I mean, he's throwing consistently slant balls to Michael Thomas. He's got a great O-line, one of the best head coaches in football. You got a great running back in Kamara. You just added Emmanuel Sanders. Like, Drew Brees doesn't have to be that good this year. I mean, we saw how they did with Teddy Bridgewater stepped in and played well. I think it's more of a system thing more than it is Drew Brees. I think Drew Brees is kind of past his prime of truly carrying a team with his talent. I think he relies a lot on that system now.
I don't think he.
That's why I do not have him top. I think he is 7. I have him at 7 in my list. I do have him behind Deshaun Watson there.
That's fair. I can see the points you're making. I'm a little higher on Drew Brees. I think he's still got it in the tank. And I mean, this is probably going to be his last season, so we'll kind of see what he does. But
look, I could totally see him making a run to the Super Bowl this year, but that team would not make a Super Bowl run because of him. It would be because of
he's not the
solid. They have a good defense. They have a good wide receiving core, good running game. They just are a good all-around football team. Like, they are just – when you look at rosters, they probably have the best roster in football all around. You could debate that at least. They're
I
top
agree.
three.
They
I
do.
would
They
say I
easily
would say
do.
them and the Chiefs have the top two rosters in football when you're looking at it.
Yeah, probably. And then I think third, probably around third, would either be probably to put the 49ers or
I would say the Ravens.
49ers, the Ravens. Yeah, one of
I would
those
say
two teams.
Ravens.
All right. Well, we're going to move on from the NFL. We're going to talk about baseball right now. So we've had very fluctuating reports on baseball. It looked like at one point earlier this week there wouldn't be baseball, as Rob Manfred was even saying. It's probably not 100%. But then quickly within a day we did a 180, and it seems like we have a deal in place. Although we know the owners aren't too happy about this. We got that report earlier today. It's going to be a 60-game season beginning on July 19th. I'm not 100% sure when the players would return to kind of have a spring training type camp, but
Basically, as soon as possible, I think.
Yeah, as soon as possible.
As soon as there'd be a deal, they'd kind of head down and do spring training.
But
or
the
do
owners,
it at their home location.
Yeah, something like that. But the owners are not happy about this. They wanted more games. We know it started at 100, and then it kind of fell to 70, and now it's fallen to 60. Which makes more sense considering the players didn't want to play back-to-back games like every week, 1 p.m. game, 7 p.m. game, stuff like that. That's reasonable and it's completely understandable, given that it's going to be a very odd season. Considering that we'll have it, but it will be a very odd season. Probably close to bubble-like, where we're going to see only certain locations used. But I'm glad we got baseball. We have a plan now for baseball to come back. What scares me is the NBA. We know came back like a week and a half ago officially, or something like that, or it was 2 weeks ago. And they have a plan that's like a 6 to 7 week plan, but baseball seems to have they have a month to get everything ready. I'm kind of concerned that they don't have enough time, and they don't have the same layout as the NBA to successfully orchestrate this proposed 60-game plan. So I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm kind of concerned because when you look at it, you're pushing time back. You keep pushing it back, and will they have enough time here to get a season in? Some of these teams, it depends if they're using bubble locations or not, but some of these teams, they can't be hosting playoff games in November and December.
You can't have
there'll be snow on the ground. You can't be playing. Yeah, you can't have the Minnesota Twins in the playoffs, and they're supposed to be playing baseball in December. That's just not going to work. So it's kind of concerning with that part. I mean,
Chicago.
I am concerned that this is basically a lockout right now because they could be playing. It's more, what do they want to do? And I think this has been handled really poorly by Manfred. I think this is just a bad look on the MLB. And it's really concerning me about the future of the MLB. I'm concerned with how this will work. I think this will hurt them in the future. And honestly, at the rate they've been going, they've already been on the decline. They're losing fans every day. I mean, they've been on the decline year by year by year here. I mean, they're just getting worse. And honestly, this is kind of a hot take, kind of off topic, but I think the MLS will pass the MLB within 5 to 7 years as popularity, at least. I mean, the MLB is in a bad spot here. They look really bad, players and owners included here. When it comes to a lockout, it's never just one side. Both sides are disagreeing here. I think the owners are being a little too greedy, but the players are as well. The players should just be playing. I mean, they want their money now, but it's going to cost them in the future. They're zeroed in on making their money right now, but you're costing future generations of players money, and you're costing yourself possibly money down the road. So it's I just don't understand it. Yes, I understand why they want their money right now, but when you look in the long run, you're just hurting yourself. So it doesn't make sense in my opinion. I just think they need to come to an agreement here, settle on something here, get baseball back, because a year without baseball here would be a huge loss.
Huge loss. I don't know if the MLB would ever recover.
Exactly. They had a chance here to come back and be the first sport back, and that would boost their popularity huge. And they just failed. They couldn't do it, and that really hurt them. I'm really disappointed in the MLB.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's not much to debate here. We're kind of just reporting to talk about it because I think we're both just equally disappointed. I think there is a chance because the MLB is not like the NFL, the NBA, all these other sports where there's a lot of heavy contact. The baseball is one of the least contacted sports. I mean, outside of, tag plays and stuff like that, but you could easily orchestrate a dugout that's safe. You can easily orchestrate a game that's pretty safe by testing the players. It's not as hard. Yeah, Korea's been doing that for over a month now, and it's worked perfectly. We haven't heard about any real outbreaks for them. So
The
I think
MLB could have been doing that. The MLB could have
MLB
done that,
easily
but
could. We could
they blew
be a
their
month
chance.
or two into the season right now if the MLB was smart.
Exactly. We could have been, but they blew it.
Bad management, bad commissioner, worst commissioner in sports in my opinion now. We're up Manfred.
But it's not just on him. It's on
not just
baseball
on
as a
him,
whole.
you're right.
The owners are being too greedy. They won't take the losses here for the future, but the players will do the same thing. They want the money now rather than they're not looking in the future because this is going to hurt them in the long run if they can't come to an agreement. I think they both just need to settle in the middle. The owners need to be okay with losing a bit of money here, and the players need to be okay with losing a little money too because it's just what's happening right now. You just got to figure it out. You got to work things out, and it's disappointing.
Yeah, I agree. But I think we do have a good chance of getting baseball back by July 19th. I hope so too. I hope they have put together a smart plan. The one sport here that really has been on this since the get-go has been the NBA. They really put a plan together. We're going to talk about the NBA right now. The NBA has a pretty highly strategic plan to return to basketball. Teams will return to separate. I think there's 3 locations for hotels. There's strict rules about leaving the hotel and what you can do and stuff like that. And the players all have to abide to these rules. So it's going to be interesting. It's an irregular season, that's for sure. But the NBA has a solid plan, and there's going to be playoff basketball this season, it seems like, barring something crazy happening. So our last topic here today is who we think needs this ring the most. Which team, not necessarily player, but, well, it could be player. I guess we could talk about player.
We can do player.
But
both a player and a team.
I'm going to let you start, Justin, first.
Okay, so for player, I think it's got to be – I have 2, and they're both contenders in the West. It's Paul George and Anthony Davis. Neither one has had good – Paul George has struggled in the playoffs since he left the Pacers. He was dominant when he went to the game, Eastern Conference Finals against the Heat, I believe that was. He was dominant then. He got his nickname Playoff P, but he has not shown up in the playoffs since then. So, honestly, he needs to get that name back here. He needs to have success in the playoffs. And Anthony Davis has done nothing in the playoffs. Absolutely nothing. He has struggled. He hasn't done well. And now he has LeBron on his side. I think it's tough because with LeBron, it would at least make it look better. I mean, he just hasn't had any playoff success. So I think he needs it as well. Those 2 guys are my guys that need a ring right now. It would cement their legacy as good players. Like, without that, they're just kind of average players because they don't have – like, they're good players, but they won't be anywhere in NBA history because they can't win championships. Neither of them have made good efforts at winning the championship outside that Eastern Conference Finals run by Paul George. So I think both of them are definitely needing the ring. And if I had to pick a team who needs it the most, it would be the Houston Rockets because they have 2 players that are known for choking. They had so much hype entering the year with getting those 2 players, and they've kind of failed here. They got this new system of small ball, which is kind of interesting to watch. Kind of like the Warriors went to small ball back before they signed KD. They had that small ball lineup there where sometimes Draymond Green would be playing center. So I'm interested to see how their small ball game works. I think they need the ring the most as a team, and my 2 players would be Paul George and Anthony Davis.
Those are fair picks. I'm going with the teammate of Anthony Davis, my favorite player, LeBron James. I think he needs this ring the most. I'm going to explain why. I think AD can end up being sort of like the Pippen to LeBron's Jordan. If he can win a couple of these rings, I mean, we've seen Scottie Pippen, in my opinion, is one of the most overrated players in NBA history, but the reason he is because Michael Jordan made who he was. You know, everybody knows him as the sidekick, and he thinks he's one of the better small forwards of all time, which he's not. He's a very solid player, but I've seen people have him in the top 20 of players of all time. That's just not true. But AD, if he can win a couple rings with LeBron, could easily be top 20 of all time. And I think he actually is deserving of so, given his statistics and the way he plays. But I think who needs the ring the most is LeBron. I think it's pretty easy. First of all, everything right now is falling into place for LeBron to win the championship. LeBron has the
teammates are saying they're not going to come back. Dwight Howard and Avery Bradley are saying they're not going to come back.
Dwight Howard and Avery Bradley are not going to be the deciding factors for the Lakers.
No, I'm just saying they already have 0 depth to begin with, so losing their depth right there is not good.
DeMarcus Cousins could easily be re-signed. He's been working out in LA training facilities. He's been living in LA. I think they're going to probably re-sign him.
I'd honestly rather have a healthy Dwight Howard over whatever DeMarcus Cousins would give you because DeMarcus Cousins has been injured. He cannot stay healthy. He has not been dominant since his returns. He's just not the same player he was. He'd be very overhyped, and I think it would actually hurt the Lakers team because everybody would be hyping him up to be some star, and he's not going to be a star. He's going to be terrible. He's going to be 8-8 tops, which Dwight Howard's already giving you. So just keep Dwight. Don't bring in new chemistry. That just wouldn't work, in my opinion.
I honestly, and I love Dwight. He's still a very solid defensive player. I think he's got to Marcus defensively wise. But if you lose Bradley and Dwight, you're going to want an offensive punch because those are two players who average around 8 to 10 points per game. You need somebody who can.
And they're two players that are two of the best defensive players in basketball. They're very good on the defensive end. Both of them are actually elite defenders.
The Lakers still got real. I mean, JaVale McGee's a really good defensive center. Contavious Caldwell-Pope, people make fun of him, but he's a very good guard, very good wing defender. They got Danny Green, who's also
Xavier Bradley.
I think their defense is fine, regardless of losing those two. But it's LeBron James. He needs this ring the most. This is LeBron's literally silver plate opportunity to win his 4th championship, and it shouldn't be that hard. He's going to be well rested, 3 months off rest. Easily, he'll be the best player in the league with that rest coming into the rest of the season. And who knows what's going to happen? You know, there's a lot. This whole system is just perfect for LeBron to win the championship. I mean, obviously, he would have liked to win it the regular way, but I think he's even got a bigger advantage right now because I think there's a lot of turmoil in the league. A lot of players are probably going to be coming into this without the same attitude as LeBron and the Lakers, you know, wanting to win that 4th ring and knowing it's his best chance because in these next couple of years, we're going to have a healthy KD and maybe not a healthy Kyrie, depending on what he does. Maybe he makes his own league. But assuming those two actually play with each other, they're going to be hard to beat in the East. You're going to have Giannis heading into the middle of his prime, only getting better and better. You're going to have Kawhi and Paul George, still a dynamic and younger duo. LeBron's at age 35. This is his season to win it all. I mean, he does not have a better chance than winning in this bubble format right now. I think the Lakers will win. I think they really will. And I think they're going to win running away this season. And there's going to be there's going to be Skip Bayless putting an asterisk on it, but no one else will be. It's going to be his 4th championship. He's going to have 4. If you're going to put an asterisk on it, put it on the ones where KD won with Golden State, where there was literally no way they could have lost, or the ones where they were lockout seasons. But no, all that asterisk stop. Unless something happens with Giannis in the finals, there's no asterisk on this season. But
LeBron won't even be making the finals. There's no way he makes out of the West.
Yeah, I know.
It's going to be the Clippers. The Clippers will. They have more depth, more firepower. They don't have any turmoil between their own team. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with this team? They could be arguing with each other when they get out there because people aren't going to want to play. You don't know what's going to actually happen. I think you can't be given anything a lock. You're acting like it's already happened. You're acting like the Lakers are already the champions.
I think they already ordered their rings. I think they've already ordered their rings. I think that's how confident I am in the Lakers.
That doesn't even make any sense because this is the one time you're saying LeBron's certainly going to win. This is the one time that you can't trust LeBron. You don't know how his body's going to react from 3 months off. You said
I think his body's going to be great.
He's not used to doing this. He's used to be using his body for the past 17 years has been resting at this time. It's not used to going 110% in the playoffs at this time of year. That's going to be a total throw off for him.
Last season it rested. Last season he didn't play after March.
I know, but how do you know that's going to be good for him in the playoffs? You don't know that.
I have a very good feeling.
You're acting like it's a guarantee. You cannot guarantee that. No way. You can't be guaranteeing stuff, especially with this. You have no idea what's going to happen. Who knows? The Oklahoma City Thunder could make it out. You don't know what's going to happen here.
Yeah,
you know, the Pelicans could make it out. You don't know who they're even playing in the first round yet.
Like I said, barring something crazy. Like, let's say Anthony Davis gets COVID, then obviously the Lakers aren't going to win. Or if LeBron gets COVID, they're going to have to quarantine him. But the Lakers have, it's silver platter. It should be the Lakers winning this season without a doubt. And I think it won't be a close playoffs. I think they're going to win it pretty easily. I think they've ordered their rings.
No, that's crazy talk. Crazy.
Well, my screen's turning black from sunlight losing out. Should have turned my light on here. But we're going to end the show with that one. LeBron needs the ring most. Just remember that. He needs the ring most.
No, he does not. I'll remember that when he loses to the Clippers.
If he loses, I'll be pretty sad.
We'll make a little bet on that.
And Kawhi, oh, my God. I'll be pretty sad. I hate Kawhi. I hate the Clippers. Hate what they did. Hate how they forced themselves onto that team. But that's another topic for another day.
Kind of like LeBron did with the Heat?
I didn't like LeBron when he was on the Heat. I liked him when he came back to Cleveland and built it up from the ground up, and he did the same thing with the Lakers. I mean, it wasn't him who forced AD to force a trade. AD did that himself.
Oh, really? Really? He did that with the Cavaliers? He didn't go back and join with an all-star point guard and didn't get them to trade Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love. He didn't build a team like that.
LeBron did this. I don't know if he is actually lead GM. He might just be LeBron the player, not lead GM. But we'll have to see.
Oh, but he was with the Heat, but he wasn't when it came to the Cavs roster.
Well, the Heat, he literally called up Chris Bosh and told him to come join the Heat, and we know about that. And he joined Dwayne Wade, who was already an MVP candidate. LeBron is notorious for
just
building
Brown sexual talk here.
Oh gosh, I don't even want to hear it. Give the Lakers their rings. They're ordering them. I'm not sure what size finger LeBron has, but I'm sure he's getting it sculpted for himself right now. And he'll have 4 of them after this season. He wants it the most. He needs it the most, and he's going to get it. That's all I got to say.
No.
Well, that's the end of the 7th episode of the Bullet Up podcast. It was a shorter one today, but we still had a lot of news to talk about. But you guys got to follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, all those good platforms. Make sure you subscribe as well. But thanks for listening, everybody.